Fans gave Wynonna a big Texas send-off during her farewell concert in San Antonio. This night was filled with emotion. The 30-year-old would soon be doing something she had not done in 11 years, be off the road. In attendance to celebrate the passage from on stage to off, mother and former singing partner Naomi Judd, and actress sister Ashley. But Wynonna will be doing something else completely new. She's expected to deliver her first baby in a few weeks. When we met, she was 5 months pregnant, and with her family around, it seemed the right time to recount her childhood. She is not called Hurricane Wynonna for nothing. Her hiatus from the road and the gift she treasures.
What you're hearing and seeing is the pleasure of the Lord. Because I'm as hateful as I can be sometimes. I walk a line between good and evil just like everybody else. But when you see me sing, you're seeing the grace of God, because He's able to smile on me while I do something back for Him, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense to fans. You first got to know Wynonna as one half of the most celebrated mother-daughter act in history. As the Judds, Naomi and Wynonna won country hearts with their songs and their story.
Between your heart and mine, love can build a bridge. Don't you think it's time?
Naomi married her high school sweetheart and gave birth to Wynonna before graduation. The marriage didn't last, but Naomi's strength just seemed to grow. The steely magnolia raised Wynonna and second daughter Ashley alone. She put herself through nursing school and convinced Nashville producers to give the duo a chance.
Every heart could understand that love and only love can join.
And the rest, as they say,
How did you get to me?
is history. Wynonna's talent is the stronger of the two, but she had a tendency to gain weight and demonstrated an attitude. Naomi was the show woman, the personality. 3 years ago, Naomi developed hepatitis that forced her into the hospital and off the road. The separation from their parents most young people experience in their early 20s, Wynonna went through in her late 20s. Even though she's been on her own very successfully, comparisons between mother and daughter seem to continue. This is hard for me to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do people constantly compare you to your mom?
I think it's natural for people to do that. You know, Mom was the Barbie doll and the one with the perfect hair, and her clothes matched. But thank God I knew I had a gift. I knew that no matter how heavy I was or how insecure I was, that I could sing. And that sort of I could overcompensate, you know, with my music. I could sort of say, well, I don't care what you think about the way I look or the way I talk, but I can sing. And that's what I sort of held on to.
But you once said, my weight has been my protection from the outside world. Why would you say that?
I wasn't into drugs, I wasn't into alcohol, thank you, God. But I would go in my room late at night, you know, and order room service, and that was my comfort. That was my sort of way of rewarding myself. And I had some problems growing up. I was emotionally just, you know, out of control. And thank God I had my music, in other words.
Why
that
do you
kept
think
me
you were
focused.
emotionally out of control?
Well, I didn't have a father, you know, growing up. I didn't have a sense of boundary. I was finding my way. I didn't care about school. I wanted to be the best singer in country music and take over the world.
Oftentimes, simple childhood events have a way of branding the heart. Wynonna recalls the time she and her mother were at the grocery store, and young Wynonna demanded a candy bar.
We're on welfare, we have food stamps, and I want a dang candy bar. I'm not leaving here till I get a candy bar. Well, now looking back on that, I realize how hard that was for her to be embarrassed standing there in front of all her peers. You know, having to put maybe something back so I could get the candy bar. I realize that now, what that was. But then, of course, all I cared about was my candy bar.
But how did you finally resolve? Have you ever sat down and apologized to your mother for being a brat?
We've both apologized. Mom and I think the word compassion. When you learn that your parent did the best they could with what they had, and we expect our parents to be perfect, you know, and have all the answers. You know, she was a baby when she had me and trying to find her way. And she never let go of us, never gave us up.
It's easy to see Wynonna never forgets that, and maybe that's why she's nicknamed her mother the Queen of Everything.
Well, it got to where Mom was with me in every situation. I couldn't even have a date without her being in the back of the bus. I mean, she was around everywhere. And I just said, you know, it's like she was my everything, you know. I would walk into a room after her. Like, I'd always let her go in the room first and kind of bow down to her, you know. And I loved her so much, and she was such a part of my everyday. I just said, you're sort of the queen of everything. I mean, no matter what I was doing or where I was, there she was.
No one could love me like, no one could love me like you.
The little girl grew up and eventually struck out on her own. When Wynonna announced her pregnancy without the benefit of marriage, she took a lot of criticism. Well, let's take it this way. When you went to tell your mother you were pregnant, you had to be scared to death. What were you worried about?
I wasn't scared for the judgment thing. I knew Mom would support me. We've always supported each other. Seriously, it's like there's so much crap in the world. You know, if you don't have your family for support through good and bad, then, you know, kind of what's the point? But I knew that Mom would sort of relive what she went through me. And we want better for our kids. You know, I know that Mom, and this is the way it should have been. I should have gotten married first and then had kids. And I felt that sort of irresponsibility for a minute because of that part. But I knew she loved me, so I could go to her, you know, and I could sit down and talk to her.
Did you cry and she cry when you told her?
No, there weren't tears. There was a lot of silence and just, my mom's a patter. She pats me a lot. And she sort of patted me, and we talked about the thing about marriage, and the bottom line is, take some time, and if you love this man and you want to spend the rest of your life with this man, then you should get married. But don't get married just because of the baby.
But are you really, in a way, kind of afraid to get married?
Mm-hmm. This is 1994. It's not like it used to be. You know, people are giving up. Satan is doing a real good job of breaking up the church and family, and I'm terrified. I'm terrified of, how do these women do it? How do these women have careers and marriages? How do they do them well? You know, do they do half here and half here? I'm an all or nothing kind of person. I'm used to giving my all, whether it's in the studio or on stage. And I'm going to have to figure out a way to do both, and that scares me.
Do you know the sex yet?
No.
How about a name?
I don't want to know.
You don't want to know?
No, I think, okay, so like I'm an entertainer and I'm always booked a year in advance. Everything's, you know, the next project. This has put me in the now. This has put me in the moment. We need more of that. We need to stop everything and just appreciate right now. This forces me to be sort of in the mystery of it all. Plus, Mom said that she didn't think I could do it. So I said, I'll show her.
I look at you and I hear you talk and I see your family. And I'm thinking, this is going to be
wacky people.
One spoiled baby. But I also know...
Wait a minute, you can't spoil a baby. Babies you can't spoil. Now, you know, once they get a certain age. So I'm very protective about that word because I want this child to be, and I didn't mean to interrupt, but I get really fired up about that. You know, my child's not going to ride around in limousines and stuff like that. They're going to have to get a real job, you know, because I never had one. I'm going to make that child get a real job. And I just want this child to be totally loved and consumed by that because you don't have enough of that in the world. But it ain't going to be just because I have money in the bank. You know, Mom and Ashley and I went through hard times, and I do worry about, you know, how am I going to handle that? So, but they say, too, I've been reading a lot about, you can't spoil a baby, you can't hold him enough, you know. We need to hold him all the time, as much as we can, because that goes away quick. I mean, you've got a 14-year-old, it went like that.
That fierce love is one that appears to have been handed down from Naomi and shared by Sister Ashley. I love this. You're sitting there, and your daughter is checking the hem of your dress.
I'm fixing her mic.
And you're fixing her mic. And it seems like when the three of you together, there is such a bond.
Yeah.
We're like little monkeys. We're just always grooming each other, touching each other.
Why are you all here with Wynonna on her last performance before the baby?
Well, we're helping usher her into the new phase. She's got a beautiful, blank, promising horizon in front of her. But even so, there is undoubtedly a lot of melancholy and a little bit of regret, perhaps, at finishing a tour.
But since this is the last performance for a while, and you're here, if she wants you to sing tonight, would you do it?
This is sacred stuff over here, and she wouldn't do that to herself because she's having a hard enough time. This is a kid that doesn't know any other life. She's going to wake up and go, oh my God. And she's, you know, grappling with all the motherhood stuff too. And I don't think she'd do that. I know she wouldn't do that to herself.
This is it, y'all. Thank you, God. And thank you, San Antonio, for making my night.
Wynonna told me she'll decide during maternity leave whether she'll marry the father of her child. He's a Nashville businessman. Also at that time, she'll continue working on her third solo album.